Okay, so the truth of the matter is, there are several stories I could talk about, and the story that your rabbi heard in Hollywood rather, is another story. It's a little bit about myself, my own experience in war in the IDF, and we're going to save that for another time, because today is a different kind of a day. If this was a regular day, or even tomorrow, I could be able to speak about that, about my stories in different situations in the army, where I could flat out say that, thank God I was saved by a real miracle. That's for another day. Today is not about me. As I've already said, that I still serve in the army. I got back from Miluim 2 weeks ago from a very drilling exercise, and I've been doing that for around 22 years or so. I'm right now belonging to a paratroopers unit. The story in the army is a little bit different than most people. I started in a different unit and moved around. I want to give you a little introduction so you don't think that I'm coming from some Israeli, hard, sabra kind of guy. I was born and raised in Queens, New York. I grew up there. I went to SAR Elementary School, I went to MTA High School, played hockey, basketball, senior, freshman, junior retreat, yada, yada. And growing up in high school, I'm guessing my cares and worries were probably the same ones that you had. Am I going to make the team? Get my parents to agree with me to go to the retreat, even though they didn't agree with the hashkafa that was going on there. Parties, yes parties, no parties. And I would say my biggest worry in high school was that we're going to win the championships. There was not much going on then. And I'll never forget my grandmother, I believe it was in 10th or 11th grade. She says to me, "Are you comfortable in America?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm comfortable in America. Of course I am. What's the question?" And she looked at me a little bit weird and she said to me, "You're not home." I said, "Grandma, what are you talking about?" My grandmother, on my mother's side, her family were from Hungary. And almost everybody was killed. They were taken away. They were almost the last ones in the war. My grandmother survived and was liberated from Auschwitz. And she was separated by her first husband literally at the gates of Auschwitz. And when they made it out, originally they were in Sweden, and Swedish Jews at the time were not really doing well in terms of religion-wise, so my mother was born in Sweden. At the age of 4, they dropped everything and moved to America with nothing, zero. And my grandmother worked her fingers to the bone to pay for Jewish day school, so my mother can study in a Jewish day school and not in a regular school, which they might have done if they were living in Hungary before the war. This woman she was a tremendous hero. And we could speak about her for hours, but that's not what we want to talk about today. And she said there were a couple of things that I found strange, because we collectively, any of us who come from the United States of America, felt very comfortable living in that country. And if I ask you, how many people do you know in your immediate family or friends who serve in the U.S. Army? Hands? So my great-grandfather on my father's side was a German. Served or served? Okay.
Grandparents. Yeah.
Recently, anyone? So my great-grandfather was a German general in the First World War, decorated, stripped of his medals, and murdered, of course. And they were very involved in the community. My grandparents from Hungary were very involved in the Hungarian community. Very involved. We had relatives who went to the German army, can you imagine? In World War I. Politics, everything. They were very involved. More involved than I ever was in the United States of America. I'm not saying America's not good, it's just I wasn't involved. So my grandmother said to me, "Look, you're visiting here. This is your hotel. Home is Israel." And as a teenager, I was like, yeah, Grandma, okay. Come on, it's not going to happen here. So we like to forget things. The fact that Jews were in Poland for 1,100 years. America, 1776, we're a little bit behind Poland. We were there for 1,100 years. Very comfortable, by the way. I mean, there were pogroms and stuff, but the Jewish community in Poland, was tremendous. And that came to an end. In terms of Germany, we know that Germany were the elite. The German Jews, the Yekkes, from the Yekkes, and down to other forms of Judaism that started in Germany, say we're like you. There were certain sects of Judaism that took the word Zion and Israel and Yerushalayim out of the Siddurim, because Berlin was our new Jerusalem. And we were so connected to the society there. Imagine, everybody here has got their team in America. They can name the lineup or the starters, whatever it is. This is the way we were in Europe. We were very involved. Of course, there was the Hasidic sect, which wasn't so involved. But the point was we were part of society. We all know how that ended. So as a teenager, I didn't really take her that seriously, obviously. But then I came to Israel in 1991. The first time I was in Israel was actually at 16. And I will never forget my first tour in Har Herzl, Mount Herzl, where the soldiers are buried. We had a tour guide. He brought us around. And he said, look at the ages of the boys and the girls here, 18, 19, 20, 21. To find a 25 or a 30-year-old was almost impossible. And he explained how Herzl is built and how a general is buried next to a private because there's no such thing as status after you're dead. And all the great tombstones look the same because we're all shaveh, we're all equal after you die. And of course, as an American, I got all sad and emotional and, played the Zionist game kind of. And it was, that was it. In 1991, I came to Yeshiva for the year. And we went to play Army for a week in Gadna. It was a lot of fun. It was a play Army for American tourists who want to feel like they did something. It's like camp. What happened here? This just right there. And I had a blast there in Gadna. And we played. But I put on that uniform and I was like, wow, power. Not power because of the gun. You think that, my grandmother talking about jumping off trains or getting caught by the Nazis or getting her hair pulled up because she had blonde hair and Jews marching down, to the death camps. And here I am, in uniform, in Israel. Power. And immediately when I put on that, even when we were playing, games, I knew that was it. I'm drafted. In my mind, there was almost no chance that I'm going to skip over this historical oasis of Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael protecting ourselves. Crazy idea. Can you imagine that? And again, we owe a lot to America. It's a great country. It treats the Jews well. I'm not getting into politics, don't worry. But America did fly over the train tracks of Auschwitz around 150 times and did not blow them up. Chamberlain from England signed a treaty with Hitler. He came back to England when there were jubilations and partying and said, I brought peace for our time. Peace and honor is what Chamberlain said. Imagine. Jews are burning, getting shot, and being gassed. And the Western world signs a treaty with Hitler to bring peace to the world. And he says about peace and honor. Of course, Churchill said to him, you chose dishonor over peace and you will have war. We know who was right at the end of the day, but everyone, 20/20 vision in hindsight. But this was the world. Nobody spoke up. Nobody said a word. If there was volumes of people who were opposing Israel today, protecting the Jews then, we'd be in good shape. No one said a word. Gates were closed all over the place. What can I tell you? I have a lot of distrust in the world. I don't trust them for anything. I'm very nice to people. My security? In your hands? Not a chance. So that was all behind me. So in 1992, I drafted to the Army, and we're standing in line. It's very nerve-wracking. 2 years ago, I was playing hockey. Now I'm about to hold a gun. And we're standing in line to the base, and I hear, English. So I turn, and I see a very tall guy. That was Mayor Euclid, who I actually went to elementary school with. I said, Mayor, what are you doing there? Drafting? We're the same unit. Great. And I see another guy, Gingy. I said to him, how you doing? Where are you from? I'm from Canada. Oh, nice. What's your name? Yoshua Friedberg. All right, 3 English guys. Great. Immediately we click. And we draft. We serve together. And I want to give you just a little taste. I remember being here on a Shabbaton. I was actually in a frat 25 years ago. And I was sitting at a Shabbos table Friday night, and family had kids in the Army, or one kid was in the Army, and we're sitting around the Shabbos Friday night, and the phone rings. Now, I remember in America when the phone ringing on Friday night, if you had an elderly grandparent, so maybe that was an emergency, you'd wait, code how many times it rings, and you'd pick it up to make sure it was an emergency. But most of the time, you figure it's a wrong number. No big deal. And you almost ignore it. Answering machine might listen, but otherwise you ignore it. And the phone rings, and the whole table, Friday night, just goes silent. People are holding their breaths, and I'm sitting there going, what is going on here? Silence. You see the mother, she's shaking, and I'm like, what is, I'm looking, I don't want to say anything. And then the father gets up, walks over. It's Friday night, he's picking up the phone. I'm like, dude, it's a wrong number. And a very shaky voice, he goes, hello? And I really have no clue what's going on here. It took around 4 seconds. I see the father exhale and put down the phone, and he comes back. So after a short question and answers period, I said, what, They said, well, our son is an officer in this unit, and they've been shipped up to Lebanon 3 days ago. And they thought that was a phone call from the army to tell them that your son's been killed. Now, they don't do that, and they certainly don't do it on Shabbat. They come to the door and they knock, first of all, and if it's on Shabbos, you don't get any reports. But in a mindset, when your son's in Lebanon, you don't have, your head's not on straight. When I or any other soldier goes out to Miluim, even now, you leave your family for 2 weeks to a month. Sometimes you tell them where you're going, sometimes you don't. But when you give your kids a bracha before you leave, you know that, God forbid. So this is a little taste of what parents go through. Just a small, tiny. So we drafted, and it was hard. It was a challenging time, physically, mentally, spiritually, everything. And Yoshua was 24 when he drafted. Normally we're 19, 18, especially Machal guys. They say they're 19 after a year yeshiva, 2 years, 20. Yoshua was 24 and engaged. And he made Aliyah during the first Gulf War, 1991. And what happened in 1991, when I came to yeshiva, there were 30 guys in my year. And normally in the yeshiva that I went to, I had around 120 guys a year. But it was the Gulf War the year before, and everybody was running home. He was coming here to real home. He made Aliyah during the Gulf War. And he was interviewed on the radio. I'll never forget this. And the Israeli radio host says to him, you're from Canada, you're from Montreal, and there's war going on here in Israel. Why would you come now? Why would you leave your comfortable life in Montreal and come to Israel? And Yoshua couldn't even understand the question. What is wrong with you? When your house is on fire, you don't run away, you fight it. This is the time to come. But I don't understand. And yours, well, I don't understand you. This is my home. This is the type of person he was. Like I said, he was engaged. And again, just throw a couple of stories of who he was. When you get out of the army for Shabbat, you get out. You run. You run. You don't sleep in the army. You don't eat. I mean, back then, now it's a little bit better. But you really don't sleep. You don't eat. There's not, we're getting called manot krav back then. The war rations was Spam, like this meat in a can. Really not very tasty food. I mean, some people liked it, but you have to be really hungry to like that. You don't sleep. You're physically exhausted. And of course, when you're a lone soldier, things are doubly hard. You go home and there's no one there. And so when they tell you on Friday, they check your clips. If one bullet's missing, you lost a bullet, you have to wait another hour to get out of the base, or 2 is 2 hours. If you lost something, you might have to stay on the base for Shabbat, which is horrible. And so when they tell you, all right, you're off for Shabbat, you run, you get on the bus, get out of here. You don't hesitate. You don't want to get caught. Well, we need another person to guard duty. You don't want to get caught like that. So one weekend we're getting off, and we had one guy who was sitting down, Israeli guy. He was a little bit upset. You saw his head was down, and we're on the bus already joking around. We're about to get out. We're stationed in Jenin, and we're about to get back and drive, back eventually to Yerushalayim. We're joking around, and Yoshua gets off the bus and is talking to this kid on the floor, and we're like, yeah, let's go. And we're talking, we turn our backs, and we're on the bus, yada, yada, and we hear the bus doors close. We turn around, and we see the kid who was sitting on the floor, who was supposed to stay for Shabbat, he's on the bus. And we're like, where's Yoshua? And Yoshua's unpacking his bags. He decided to volunteer. Why? Because his kid has a bar mitzvah for his brother. Now, I'm not saying you should or should not have gotten out, but I will give witness, I would not have stayed on base for Shabbat. Sorry. I'm exhausted. I used to get home. I was at an adopted family in Hernof, the Rodders. And I used to get home and drop back on the couch, and one of the daughters is a nurse, and she would have a tweezers, and she'd be picking thorns out of my arms and my hands, and I just, you're exhausted. This is the type of person he was. It was March time, and Purim was coming up, and we were already doing a lot of our big masaot, a lot of the maneuvers, and they chose Yoshua to go to officers course. Now again, not everyone's chosen at all, and if you are chosen, it's 5 years, not 3. Now Yoshua's 24. Like, what are you doing? You're engaged. You're going to get out of the army when you're 29. You did your duty. Get out of here. Get married. Start your life. No such thing by him. I'm not going to be he says, I'm not going to be an officer in the IDF. I'm going to pause for 1 second. Yeshua in Canada, they were traditional. They weren't religious. He became more religious throughout his life. He brought his family back, learned with his father, Herb, who's here in Israel. Now every year he comes back for Yom HaZikaron. And studied in Machon Meir, and brought people back from all walks of life. This guy walked into Machon Meir. Originally he was religious, but he was a basketball star in Montreal, and he became a star in Machon Meir in a very short time. And all walks of life. I heard a story today from her that I'll tell you in a couple of minutes. So they called me and said they wanted to be an officer. We're like, Yoshua, just, enough. Nothing to talk about. He left, I think it was on Thursday, and his test, he's supposed to go on Sunday towards wherever the tests were, and that was it, see if he gets in. Now, you got to remember, back then, there were no cell phones. There was no communication. There might have been telecards. It wasn't like the Asimon and the coins, there might have been telecards, but there was no cell phones. I call my parents once every 2 weeks in the field with a... So if someone didn't call me, no, I'm in the field, they can't get in touch with me. So it's not like if he didn't call me in 3 days, I get nervous. So Shabbos goes by, Sunday goes by, Monday goes by, and the officers and the commanders saying, "Does anyone know where Yoshua is?" And we're like, "Yeah, he went home, officers course, Okay. Tuesday comes along, and one of the female soldiers who takes care of the well-being of the soldiers, the emotional well-being of the soldiers, walks in with one of the commanders, and they pull everybody out except the Americans and the French and the guys who are Chayalim Bodedim, the guys, the lone soldiers. And we're like, yeah, we got off. We thought it was cool. And she asked us if we know where Yoshua is. We said, no, ask his fiance, Karen. She doesn't know where he is. Yeah, so what? It wasn't even, nothing even hinted to the fact that I was nervous about it. We were nervous about everything. The rest of the unit was brought out to go on a search party. And of course, we demanded that we go out as well. We started from Yerushalayim, from Tachana Merkazit, and we were going towards Yerushalayim Tel Aviv Highway in the back, not on the roads. Next to the road, there's a whole forest over there. And we're combing the forest. They found his tefillin and found his ID card on the floor. And the fear that he was kidnapped. Now, I don't even know what that means. Kidnapped. What does that mean? So we were nervous, but again, we'll find him. He's probably having coffee in the forest somewhere. And we're combing. And not only are we coming, there are tens of thousands of people coming. The whole country was a search party. I'm sure you guys heard 2 years ago when the kids were kidnapped. So again, the same thing happened. It was heavy flashbacks. Tens of thousands of people, and I'm telling you, from all walks of life. All day long. And it was pouring. Pouring rain. And we started on Yud Gimel, Yud Dalet Adar. It was Purim. There was no Purim that year for me, at least. And we're just searching. At nighttime, they call it to search at night. You start the next morning, and we're getting frantic already. So on the third day, I believe it was, and again, it was just nonstop rain, nonstop. Our medic, Barzel, his name in Hebrew is Barzel, his last name, he found him. So we'll run over, and there's Yoshua lying on the ground. Lifeless. Immediately, the guys who tried, the medics were trying to revive him, but it wasn't a pretty sight. He didn't just die. Without getting too graphic. We put his body up on the IDF truck, and we were destroyed is not the word. I would say that at the time I was angry at everyone and their mother. Everyone. I had many questions. 24, becomes religious, makes his family more religious, engaged, does everything right. Why? Why like this? A lot of questions. Not too many answers. He flew his parents in from Montreal. His family, not his parents, his family. And as the funeral procession starts, I look around and there's hundreds of thousands of people in the streets of Yerushalayim. The streets are absolutely packed with people. Charedim, Mizrachnikim, Chilonim, Sephardi, Ashkenaz, it doesn't matter. No one was looking even. And the unit, us guys, his friends, are walking behind the truck with the coffin, and the feeling is you can't cry, the family's there. You're in uniform. You got to be strong. His mother passed away a couple of years ago, Shalom. She obviously was, collapsing. Father as well. Healthy kid. A leader. Tremendously bright future in anything he wanted to do. Done. As much as I told myself you can't cry, it didn't work. There was no holding back. The utter shock and the destruction. We both had a gun called a mag. It's an M60, a very large gun, and two people have that gun. One of the guy dies, the other one takes it. So we were both on that gun. But just to let you understand how that works. If one of you I'm your Magstein, I'm your second guy. If God forbid we go out to war and you get killed or hit, I'm not allowed to treat you. I have to take the gun and continue fighting. Now, I don't know what that means to you, but to the IDF, that is like Yarek Vayavar. You cannot, how could you not treat the guy? The 10 seconds that you didn't treat him could kill him. But you cannot touch him. The medic's got to come, you got to take the gun and continue fighting. So at the funeral, I was a little bit distant. I didn't want to go near the coffin. And again, just to give you a little bit of understanding, in America or in Chutz La'aretz, you're buried in a coffin. It's because Admat, it's impure ground. In the you're buried in a talus cloth. Soldiers are buried in coffins. And the reason soldiers are buried in coffins is because when some soldiers come back, La Aleinu, their limbs are missing. Or we have doggy tags in our boots. So if God forbid someone's leg gets blown off, they know whose it is. I'm not telling you to scare you because I want you to know what reality is. This is what soldiers are. This is what they go through. So the family is walking in front and they're barely conscious. And we're walking in back. And the coffin with the Degel Yisrael is over. And where we are, every step we take, it's just getting worse. We make it to the cemetery. So, there are hundreds of thousands of people around. I'll show you a picture in a second. I wanted nothing to do with burying them. Didn't want to touch the coffin, didn't want to put him in the ground. You figure if you don't bury him, he's still alive, right? Stood back. At the end, he put some of the dirt on to the Yotze, the mitzvah of Kibbutz Emet, but wouldn't put the coffin in the ground. Not something I wanted to do. And it's not because I'm scared to bury someone. I mean, again, it's not comfortable, but that's not the reason. Now what? A guy who's 24 did everything right. Life is stolen, terrifying, in an instant. Now what? So at the time I was 19, right? 19, 20, I was 19, I remember. And it goes through, well, what if that was me? I know what I'm going to say at his funeral, because the kid was a superstar. We're thinking, well, what would he say if it was us? Played hockey, played basketball. What now for the future? There's no guarantees. He did everything right. So there was a rabbi there from Machon Meir who, put his arms around us at the time we found him, and he said something to the effect of, "God, what I want to know, there's a reason for everything." We don't like that. At least I didn't like that then. I got very, very upset with him. If you're going to tell me there's a reason for everything, you better give me the reason. Otherwise, don't tell me there's a reason for everything. If you can't explain it, then don't tell me it's logical. That's how I felt then. Today, when I went on Yom HaZikaron, when the sirens go off, you're shot back. Back 23 years. The fact that I was in Lebanon, had another two guys who were killed from my unit, of course it's horrible. But this was a completely different story. We found his diary afterwards. The thing that this guy wrote in his diary was mind-blowing. When he would get off of base, he would go visit families of fallen soldiers. Who does that? Are you crazy? You don't have strength to eat, sleep, anything. You want to go and visit other people in motion like that? If I remember correctly, he wrote in his diary that if God forbid something happens to me, no shooting at my funeral. Three warning shots, 3 honor shots you have at military funerals. Navi. Everywhere I go, kids, younger, who weren't alive then. I was in Washington D.C. at the Jewish Federation Fair, or whatever, I don't remember what it was, and I had a booth with the organization that I run to help soldiers. And I was telling a story of Yoshua, and a girl walks up and goes, "Yoshua Friedberg?" I go, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "I did a work on him in high school. I met 3 kids in Herzl today who are in Israel through the foundation of Yoshua Friedberg's name, who paid for them to come to Israel for them to learn." Everywhere I go. Now, I don't know if his father's listening now live or not, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sorry, Herb, for embarrassing you. His parents obviously gained many other sons, who all became their adopted sons, somewhat. When I went to Montreal, I visited them, I slept in Yoshua's room. Not a very comfortable experience, except the other room, and it would go in Yoshua's room there, and it was just very strange. And I never knew Yoshua before I went to the army. And his father was an IT guy, a very big, high level, and after that happens, that's it. You can't work anymore. You can't focus anymore. And you know when the worst time is? It's Chagim, it's Shabbat. And Herb told me, I spoke to him last night, and he says his wife, who passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately from cancer, said to him, "Why do you go to shul? You get so upset when you go to shul with your Talmud." He says, his wife's name was Dina. So I go to shul. Yoshua used to learn Talmud with me. I'm going to go to shul. And he says, every time I put the Talmud next to me on my seat, I break down. And sitting around a Shabbos table, there's one seat always empty. And the Chagim, there's one seat always empty. And it's never to be filled again. And I'll tell you, someone as a friend, not even as a family member, it never gets easier. Never. I remember being at his open grave. And I remember looking ahead of me, and that was it. I said, okay, maybe this will be the last one. And I go back to our Herzl, and I can't see the end. 23 years later, I can't see the end. So besides the tears, and they come down strong when those sirens go off, it's like someone reaches into the hearts of these families and friends and rips your heart out every time over again from the beginning. I've seen families in Haaretz, so the woman whose whose son, whose only son, her single and only son, who started out in the army, Commando Yami, which is a commando, one of the highest commando units, and then went in to help Golani into Lebanon, was killed by friendly fire in Lebanon when they were getting ready for an ambush. IDF, unfortunately, crossfire. Only son. And she fought with the courts to have something different on her son's grave because he wasn't killed by the enemy. She's not angry at Israel, but it's a terrible thing. An only child. And nothing can ever fill that void. Nothing. So I've seen this woman for 23 years. Every year when I go back on Yom HaZikaron, I see her. And I talked about her for 23 years. This year was the first time that I said hello to her. In the middle of the Teketz just now in Har Herzl, I walked behind, I put my hand on her shoulder and I said, listen, we've seen each other for 20, she must be, I don't know, 50s, late 50s. We've seen each other for 23 years, I've never said hello. And she grabs my hand, she says, I see her every year. I bring students there every year. I see you here every year. Thank you for saying hello. And I said to her, I explained to her who I was. And I tell her that I speak about her all the time with my students. Never met her before. And you look around Har Herzl to 18, 19, 20, 22-year-old. Again, if you find someone over the age of 24, it's like you found a freak. These are guys 2 years older than you, your age, 18, 19. So with the tears, the question is, what do we learn? What do we learn? How do we deal with such horrific, wrenching, heart-wrenching tragedy that I cannot... Look, the Holocaust was a terrible, horrific experience. We can't even talk about it without... But we're distant from it, unfortunately. We still remember it, and we have to learn lessons from that also. Every family who went through this went through another personal Holocaust. You don't recover from this. Ever. It always affects you. So what now? What does it all mean? Why? So besides being sad and missing and having a lot of questions, where do we go from here? So truth is, I struggled with this for many years. Be a good Jew, learn Torah, do mitzvah, army, everything, serve and protect. And that. Okay, Kadosh Baruch Hu will take care of you. He didn't take care of Yoshua, right? Or did he? It's very painful to ask these questions, but how do you deal with this in life? So first thing you do is you get a different view of what death is. And of course, I don't have a death wish when I live to 120 and see my great-grandkids. But life isn't about a timeline. Life is an action line. There's no question in mind. I said it yesterday. It was unbelievable. Yes, I said to the group I was speaking to, I said, if I would have told Yoshua that he was going to be killed in the line of duty, would he draft to the army anyway? My answer is 110% he would have drafted anyway. This morning's headline in one of the papers, I might even have it in my car, I saw it and I smiled. It's a kid talking about his father who was killed. It says, Shaltit Abba, and he shot at Abba, his dreams, I guess. If you would have, it says in Hebrew, if you would have known you would have been killed, would you still have gone out to the mitzvah? Would you still have gone out to the operation? And the kid writes, there's no doubt in my mind that Abba would have gone out to the operation. Because life is not a timeline. It's an action line. And you are your decisions. And you are your actions. And Uri mentioned heroes. I'm not saying this to be modest. Don't. The guys, 23,447 heroes are not around to give witness to their own heroes. Roy Klein, who jumped on a grenade and said Shema Yisrael before doing so and saved his unit, is a hero. And what's a hero? In my opinion, a hero is someone who makes good decisions even though they're very difficult. That's a hero. Someone who makes good and smart and right and moral decisions, even though very, very, very difficult. Society tells you to go one way, and I'm not talking about doing things that are not right according to Allah. I'm not talking about things that are okay. This Shabbat speech, you want me to get into it, I can get into it. The point is, again, you have to understand one thing. And I'm going to throw this out at you, and you shouldn't think about this, God forbid. You're young, I'm young. But when it slaps you in the face, you think about it. At 120 years old, you have your kids, great-grandkids, and whatever around your bed. What's the message? Grandpa said, Eretz Yisrael is important to me. Torah is important to me. I'm going to spend another year learning Torah in Eretz Yisrael. I want to bring my kids up speaking Hebrew, knowing the Hebrew months and not the English months. I want them to know when Sukkot is and not Halloween. I'm going to bring them up in Israel, in Eretz Yisrael. As me, I'm not giving you Musa right now, how I would ever explain to Kadosh Baruch Hu that you gave me Yerushalayim, I'm living in wherever. How could I ever do that? Forget pressures. On a decision, how could I do that? You daven every day to come back to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim. People are living here in Eretz Yisrael, and we decide to live elsewhere. I don't understand it. I'm not, again, nothing against people in America. They're very good Jews, great Jews, and sure they help Israel a lot and help us tremendously, but we belong here. At least we should be thinking about coming here. Seriously, thinking about coming here. These are my lessons. Because at the end of the day, you're either going to live till 120 and being, 80, 90, 120, or Yoshua dies at 24. Either way, the good decisions are the smart decisions. If you live a long life, so all your worries about work, which you should be worried about, parnas and education, it's, you don't mess in terms of education. I'm a big Rav Bina boy. Education is a mitzvah, work, parnas is a mitzvah. I'm not going the kola route. Don't even think I'm going there. But decisions you make, at the end of the day, you're going to retire at 65. You lived 120. You got another, 55 years to do it. All right, so that actually, you would admit it, that's going to kill you. No, that's going to send a message to you and everyone around you. And if God forbid it's Yoshua, so his decisions in life made him a hero at 24. Not because he was killed, because of the way he lived. I'm scared of peer pressure. I'm scared of what society's going to say because I make the right decision. In kol hakavod, with all due respect, I don't care. I don't care. So there were several other military funerals that I was supposed to go to over the years, and I did not go. I can't stand them. I can't stand them. I can't deal with them. I've gone sometimes from afar. I can't do it. Aaron HaKohen was responsible for opening up the Mishkan. We read Shmini Vayidom Aaron. So you were just reading the Makoros afterwards. Yain Ve'Shecha Atesh, right? Going to the Mikdash. Aaron HaKohen is responsible for opening up the Mishkan. One of the happiest days. Again, we have no connection. All of a sudden, big connection. Huge. And he's responsible. He's the main show. And his two sons are killed. And they're not killed by enemies, or they're killed by a Kadosh Baruch Hu. They're killed by the same source of Tov that Aaron HaKohen is supposed to be celebrating now. And if you look at some of the Mefarshim, the Nadav and Avihu were tremendous individuals. And they were just hungry for Kedusha. So Eish Zarah, of course there's nothing wrong. But everything was good. And his two sons are killed by fire of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And it says, Vayidom Aaron, and Aaron stood quietly, silent. Now, I don't care, and I'm not going to talk about politics. A whole other class you want to hear about my politics. Aaron HaKohen, Vayidom Aaron, he stood quietly. And he thought. And he accepted the din. And he learned the conclusions. And he continued. Vayidom Aaron does not mean he wasn't sad. Doesn't mean he's not going to miss his children. It means he understands that life is not just about how long you live. And the next pasuk is wild. What does the Kadosh Baruch Hu say? Or Moshe Rabbeinu said to Aaron? What did his two sons teach? Kadosh Baruch Hu says, in these two Be'avayim, the ones that I love, in Kadesh, I'm going to be sanctifying the Mishkan. What does that mean? With death we sanctify the Mishkan? What are we? Our cousins? We sanctify life with death? We don't do that. V'chai b'hem. We sanctify life, period. So what does that mean that we sanctify the Mishkan with your two sons? What does that mean? We have to die? What it means is the following. Am Yisrael apparently could not capture the essence and the holiness of the Mishkan. And maybe they thought it was just to feel good and, oh, we got a Mishkan, it's wonderful. No. Maybe we should go around and bang people on the head with hammers and spray and, oh, what? No. No. There's Kedusha. With Aaron's two sons that were killed, the Mishkan became Kadosh in the eyes of Bnei Israel. It's not that it was Kadosh before. The Shekhinah rested there. Of course it was Kadosh. We had the problem. We had the problem. And through the two Aaron and Cohen's sons' deaths, now Bnei Israel gets it. It's sanctity. It's holiness. You can't fool around with this. There's a reason why Yom HaZikaron is a day before Yom HaAtzmaut. And it comes from the same idea, anyone who mourns over the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash will eventually be able to celebrate over the building of the Beit HaMikdash. If you don't understand how precious it is, you don't deserve to have it. And Yom HaZikaron, when we just came back from Har Herzl, thousands of families whose most precious, what do you call them, were taken, were sacrificed. You cannot take Eretz Yisrael for granted. You can't take you sitting in Modi'in, Chashmonim, Modi'in, Makam. You can't sit here and just, well, that's it, we're here, we'll go back and come back. Eretz Yisrael is not a land to be played with. It's just not. Your great-grandparents or grandparents, my grandparents, to tell them in 1940 or 1, 2, 5, you know what? Your great-grandchildren, grandchildren will be sitting in Modi'in, funny, Modi'in, Chashmonim, Yerushalayim, and learning Torah. Your great-grandchildren will be in the army, wearing a uniform, right? Israel Defense Tzal. They'll put you in an insane asylum in 1945. What are you, nuts? The idea of Geula before where we are today was fantasy. Coming back to Eretz Yisrael, Kibbutz Goliath, what are you talking about? It's a parsha in the Torah we read about. We read it every day in Shemona Esrei. It's a tefillah we say. We've been saying it 2,000 years. It's an idea. There's Kibbutz Goliath going on, people. It's one of the undisputed signs of the times of the Geula. We have Ashkenazi guys marrying Ethiopian Jewish girls. We have Ashkenazi girls marrying Moroccan guys. Yemenite, Iranian, what doesn't matter. There's full-fledged Kibbutz Goliath going on. And you can't take it for granted. A couple of months ago, I gave a siyum on Masechet Ketubot and Masechet Kshuvos. And I did the sugya of the Shavuot that we have there on Kuf Yud Aleph Amanav. The whole base for, let's call, the Satmar ideology. And I did a whole siyum based on it, and I took Vayol Moshe, and I read through it, and I gave part of those, and I took Rav Kook, part of those, and then I gave Halacha, Rambam, everyone. And I explained each shita down to the bone a little much as I could, and I found some mistakes, and I called up some Satmar people that I know, and asked them, please explain this to me, because I really don't understand it, because it's a mistake. He quotes Rashi incorrectly. One of the biggest proofs that I'm not speaking against the people. Okay? Don't. It says, "En ben David ba esh tichem Mshal Zalal Yisrael." Ben David in Sanhedrin Tzadichet, I believe it is. Ben David does not come until Memshalah Zalal Yisrael. It's something about Memshalah Zalal. The word is a little strange. And in Vayol Moshe he writes that Rashi means it's a Memshalah Yehudit that's going to fall in Eretz Yisrael. Very interesting. Open up the Nagin, look at Rashi, and Rashi says it's Esav and Gog and Magog. No mention of Jews. So I call up some summer guys I know online. I say, guys, what is this? Oh, you must have the wrong marker. Okay, can you show me the right one, please? So I'm not going to be cholak on Rav Yolish. I'm a cockroach. He's a much bigger Talmid Chacham than I was. But I'll have the security of every single halachic basis that exists in the Achronim. Shulchan Aruch, Rambam, Ramban, Ravid, everyone. No one holds the Shavuos as halacha l'maisa. Reish Lakish talks about the fact that he curses out the Bavlim. What? Not the Bavlim, the Jews, for not coming up kechomah. 1 second. That was after the Churban. How could you do that? So I'm not going to go into the whole other shir, but the point is, I don't really care what your politics are. If you do not feel the hakarat tov, the deep hakarat tov to Kadosh Baruch Hu, to the fact that you are sitting here in Eretz Yisrael learning Torah, you are missing something ekroni in Judaism. There's something wrong. I'm not talking about Hallel right now. Again, another shir. If you do not feel the gratitude, the tremendous gratitude, even till tears, that you're sitting in Eretz Yisrael as Jews and learning Torah, there's something horribly wrong with that person's Judaism. Horribly. Hakarat Tov is aleph aleph. You don't have that, you got a problem. Check your genes, as Rav Bina would say. Something's wrong. What you do that Hakarat Tov, we're not discussing now. But if you don't understand how lucky you are, you did not remember 23,447 Yoshua Friedbergs. You did not cry enough. You don't understand the pain. You don't understand the sacrifice. So the lesson that I learned, it should be the Ilui Nishmat Yoshua Yehuda. The lesson that I learned is life is precious. And as Jews, we have a responsibility to fill our lives up and live life the way it's supposed to be lived. Not just live life. That was the first time I would say that I wouldn't say I'm not complaining, but slapped in the face. Nice big wake-up call. Another story for another time was Lebanon. Came out of there by miracle, thank God. I'm not going to go into the whole story now. This was a piece of shrapnel that, thank God, blew through my vest and did not cut me in half. This sits on my brake front, with the Kiddush cups, the Chanukiah, the menorah. You can check everything else out. Don't touch this. I mean, you can touch it. Don't take it. They give us little medals for the war. They're plastic. Or they're metal. Doesn't matter. This is the reminder. So tonight, we're going to switch over. It's a very sharp switch from tsar, from kev, from pain, real pain. You should never know this. You should never taste this pain, ever. It's horrific. And we're going to switch over to happiness. And it's called Gilu Birada. It's happiness with fear. It's happiness with sanctity, with Kedusha. Have fun also. I'm not, people do that. Fine, have fun. The fact that Jews can have fun is a good thing. The Nevuah talks about the children running around the streets of Yerushalayim. It's a good thing. Don't talk Lashon Hara about it. It's a beautiful thing. Jews are climbing the walls of Yerushalayim. Beautiful, spraying each other. Wonderful. Baruch Hashem. But we have to understand that it's something more. And you as Jews have to understand it's something more. And it's not some Israeli who died, or some soldier who died. Ezra Schwartz, I have to tell you, you don't know the name? He was an Israeli? He's your age. Max, you know the name? Chayal Boded, lone soldier, your age. You have to have these heroes in mind. You have to understand that Eretz Yisrael is not something to be played with, or bargained with, or fooled around with, or mizazel. You can't do it. My father always says one thing, major thing. It's a very tremendous, call it a vort. What's the only avera that Bnei Yisrael were not given tshuva for? The only one in the Torah. Which one? People always make the same mistake when I ask this question. Which one? What was the worst avera that Bnei Yisrael did? Come on, guys.
There you go.
Thank you. Wrong. I love the answer. Yom Kippur, we were given tshuva for the Egel, kapara for the Egel. The Meraglim, when they spoke badly about Eretz Yisrael, was the only avera that we were not given tshuva for. Avodah Zarah, we were given kapara for in Yom Kippur. And what did they speak about the Meraglim, by the way? Who were the Gedolei Ador? What did they speak about? This is from the Radziner Rebbe, by the way, I heard. What did they speak about? What did they badmouth?
Giants of the land.
So who did they badmouth about? The people. And they were Goyim. And somebody dare talk about the Jews in Eretz Yisrael? I don't care what they're doing. It's the only affair we weren't giving kapara for. We got to have Mitzrayim, we're Memtet Shari Tuma. Don't forget that. Purim Jews were eating from the can of the Beit HaMikdash. Chanukah, mityavnim. This fantasy about Gula coming and we're perfect, I don't know where people get it from. It's one day in the Gemara, we're not posting. The Rabbah puts a word, we built the Beit HaMikdash. And Rav Nemetza was posting, we built the Beit HaMikdash, for those who are interested to know. I asked him after 67, what should we have done? He said right to my face, we should have started building. Today we don't have Yirot HaGoyim. We don't have the Goyim, we're not scared of us anymore. We ruined it. So I'm leaving off with this message. In honor and the memory of Yoshua and thousands, the tens of thousands of other men, women who lost their lives, who sacrificed their lives. Cry in their memory. Feel that pain, it's important. But remember, pain on its own is not what we're looking for. The lessons of pain. We remember the Holocaust. Why? Well, they were destroying us as Jews. They destroyed a lot of other people as well. Become a stronger person, stronger Jew. Politically, you want to learn something? Diplomacy is not more important than morality. Very simple. Chamberlain thought it was. America thought it was. It's not. Morality is more important. You want to learn something from the guys who were killed over the last whatever amount of years in the army? Never take Israel for granted. Ever. 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 You should be here. And if you're not here, at least you should want to be here. And if our minds as Jews is not on Eretz Yisrael, something is wrong. We're letting that chance of 67 and the Beit HaMikdash to be built slip through our fingers again. Don't do that. In the memory of the honors of those who sacrificed their own selves in order for you to sit here. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take questions. Otherwise, that's my message to you. I will, shout out Shana Bet. I'm not getting percents here, but I personally don't understand someone who has a chance to stay and learn Torah in Eretz Yisrael and gives it up to go to start college. You're retired at 65 and you have another 50 years left, 55 years left, or 40 or whatever it is. Stay one more year in Eretz Yisrael to learn Torah and choose not to. I'm sorry, guys, I don't understand it. I'd be happy to argue with whoever you want, but I just don't understand it. Doesn't make sense to me. On an historical light, it doesn't make sense. On a national one, on a religious one, it doesn't make sense. Ask people in 1945 they would want to learn Yerushalayim for 2 years. Are there any questions? None? Okay, guys, thanks for your attention. Hope I didn't too much of your time, and have a Chag Sameach tomorrow. Enjoy it.
Yeah.